In our gospel today, we have a story of Jesus healing on the Sabbath and being condemned for this by the synagogue leader. Or at least that is how this story has been frequently understood. Unfortunately, there are several problematic issues with this understanding. First, it often has been used to show the difference between Judaism and Christianity, with Judaism being seen as the inferior religion, and Jews as stubborn adherents to a failed faith, at best pitiable, at worst enemies of the Christian people. Second, there is the issue of Jesus being seen as the one who heals disabilities and physical ailments. Now, while Jesus did practice physical healing, and it is important that as Christians following in his path, we help those who are suffering, we need to recognize that disabilities are sometimes imposed by society and our expectations rather than being inherently constraining. That is, when we impose the expectations of what it means to be able bodied versus disabled, and see making our shared infrastructure as accessible to the one group as being normal and the other group as being special, we create disabilities where they need not inherently exist. But when we have this understanding that Jesus came to heal the disabled, we impose this human understanding of what makes someone normal on God. Third, in it we see Satan as being a physical being who has cursed this woman with this ailment. Well, this may very well have been the understanding of some in the crowd. For most Jewish people of this time and place, Satan was understood not to be some red skinned, mostly naked being with a pitchfork, horns, and a tail, but rather that which holds us back in this good but imperfect world. Satan is evil, or more precisely, the lack of good, the lack of God personified. Lastly, when we see this as being merely a story about healing of a physical disability, we ignore the very words that Jesus says. Jesus does not compare the healing of this woman to the binding up of wounds of an animal on the Sabbath, but rather the releasing of livestock from ropes and harnesses so that they may drink water freely. And Jesus says clearly to the woman, "You have been set free from your ailment." This is a story of liberation, not of healing in the traditional sense. Jesus is setting this woman free from that which has kept her bent over in a pose of permanent submission, giving her the power to stand up and give praise to God, to drink the living water that is his message of love. Everyone in the story is Jewish. Jesus is not freeing her from being Jewish. In fact, by calling her daughter of Abraham, he is reinforcing his understanding that she is Jewish. She and all those present are God's chosen people and are called by God to freedom and liberation. Freedom from pain and suffering, yes, but also, and more importantly, freedom from the burdens placed on us by one another. And the healing on the Sabbath was not contrary to the teaching of Moses to keep this day holy, but rather the greatest expression of this holiness. It was the releasing of one of God's chosen people from a burden that had been weighing her down, separating her from God and her neighbor for 18 years. God's chosen people, and we, through the salvation of Jesus, as people grafted onto the root of Jesse, are called to release one another, not just or even primarily from physical disability and pain, but from societal limitations that keep one another from being most fully ourselves. You're being called through Jesus' healing act to release one another from our stereotypes of gender, race, age, and ability. We are called to ensure that we empower one another's gifts and do not create unnecessary barriers, whether physical, economic, legal, or environmental. We are called to raise one another up, to stand together in God's creation, and one day before God's throne. Amen.